Hello everyone, I'm Luke, your host for Unfulfilled. Today I am joined by AJ from AJS Digital Group. They're a specialist e-commerce marketing agency who help brands scale their business, and you need to make sure that you know your why, and that's what AJ and I will talk about probably predominantly today, because that's the most important question to make sure that AJ is able to help you get the most from what you're trying to do. He's helped grow his clients' businesses to over $1 million in revenue, plus offering a mix of coaching and digital marketing services, including things like PPC, SEO, social, strategy, just to name a few, and also web dev. What I'm keen to learn about today from you, AJ, is sort of how you found your way into e-com, like why you love doing what you do. Because I know you've got a bit of a different way of looking at things with your clients, and like we'll discuss that in good detail as well. So I guess firstly, like for people who don't know who you are, like tell the audience, please.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. I really look forward to this because we had a great chat a couple of weeks back, didn't we? So
yes,
yeah, excited to be here. So yeah, I have a bit of a unique path. I think we all kind of do that. Yeah, although it's oddball to end up in e-commerce, I think we all have a bit of a unique path. So my first career was I was a musician. I was on like T4, played Ronnie Scott's in London. Yeah, did lots of great things like that. Got some songs released from one of the biggest boy bands out in Japan. One of the greatest hits album is 2 songs that I wrote with somebody else.
Wow, okay.
I make enough to buy Chinese now and again from that deal. Yeah, the royalties are the royalties are not amazing. But there's no real money in music, and also so there is money in music if you're like a superstar or you're in your 20s, you look very attractive. I have a dad bod, to put it quite bluntly. And so yeah, so it's a very fickle industry, and I met a lot of people in their late 40s, early 50s who had toured with all the big names of their day. I met a guy who toured with like Roger Waters, Hans Zimmerman, those kind of people. And he was playing pub gigs because he was too old and too middle-aged and too fat, essentially, to get on a suitable tour. Yet he's one of the most experienced, one of the most dedicated professionals out there. And so it was just, it was quite jarring when I figured that out. So
and
yeah,
where was this?
Sorry?
Where was this that you found this out?
Well, just meeting people in London and realising that, the more talented, the more experience that you have, the less employable you become. Right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it's an interesting game, the music industry. So yeah, and then from there I came back to so I'm from Bath originally. So I came back to Bath. I googled how to make money online, true story, and I fell into digital marketing that way. And it's now kind of been like 10, 12 years of doing this.
Yeah.
But I really found what I love, and I love marketing. I love thinking about marketing. I love thinking about how we can help persuade people to buy stuff. And I mean persuade in the traditional sense, not the the American kind of like manipulative sense.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, that's what I love doing. And then about 8-9 years ago, I started an e-com brand for myself. We scaled to 12 countries by the end of the second year. I was the first person to start Maserati watches in this country, along with some other brands that we talked about watches last time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that kind of gave me a baptism of fire, because I kind of figured out all the moving components because I had to. I also, at the time, Shopify wasn't really a big thing. Shopify only really became a big thing probably like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so while I was operating my little store, the big players of the day was either WooCommerce or Magento. At the time, it was Magento 1.8. And so I taught myself Magento 1.8 in the weekend, and then spent the next 3 weeks literally working 17-hour days trying to figure out how to run a business, how to develop a new website, and how to figure out what the hell was going on with Magento PHP. Because they kept changing the code base. So, like, the code base for 1.5 was completely different from 1.6. And by the time it got to 1.8, it was a completely different sets. set of things again. So it was an interesting proposition at that time. And so so that's kind of then that business ran out of steam because I was borrowing more money than I was bringing in, so it collapsed. But I feel that actually by it not working out, I learned a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I'm a bit of a unicorn, because I've actually been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I've had to deal with people who who order very expensive products, who then maybe not like them, or maybe have bought them to like a wonderful place in the world. I sort of watched to a guy in India who was in the diplomatic corps. So it was this really, really fancy dress. I looked at Plug and you're like, holy crap, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's like guy gazing with like people with live action like guns and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was fascinating. And then during the pandemic, I was happily doing some affiliate stuff, because I kind of retreated from doing kind of client-facing work. And a friend said, "You should be doing consulting," and I was like, no, just wasn't my kind of thing. Picked up some consulting gigs, really, really enjoyed being able to help people. And then about 18 months ago, I had an e-com client who I kind of found what I could do and how I could help somebody. I felt that's kind of half the battle, right?
Right.
And since then, I've just been helping e-com clients and all over the world, just help them understand what marketing is. And we can dive into that later, because I feel lots of people think marketing is just social. It's not. It is its own beast. I have friends that run flyer insert companies that are still putting flyers in actual physical products, packaging and sending that out as a marketing strategy, which I think is like absolutely phenomenal, right? But then you have like the TikToks, you have the emails, you have the SEO, you have the BBC, etc., etc. And so I'm really, really passionate about that. But also, I'm really passionate about helping people understand how to build a roadmap to reach their goal, because we're all in this for a goal. And so I feel that's something that we don't talk enough about, is how to crystallize what your goal is, and then how to arrange your life and your actions around achieving that.
Yeah. And that's what I found fascinating last time we spoke, was around that piece of
e-commerce, you've probably
whatever that goal is,
30%
doesn't matter.
Doing was in e-commerce.
And as long as you have that in your mind, then you can work everything backwards from that point.
What is their money in?
So what I would like to,
as much as we love,
I guess, websites, if you can give some real life examples of that. I know we spoke last time about whether you want to play golf on a Friday afternoon, or whether you want to work 4-day weeks, or whether you want to be able to spend weekends away with your family and your kids, like whatever it is. Like, so give me a couple examples.
So I think people look at social, they look at people, they look at influencers who have this amazing life, and actually usually for the camera, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't, they sit and they say, well, what I want is a 4-bedroom house, the two mercs in the driveway, I want to take all these fancy holidays. But that's somebody else's goal. It's not their goal. And so I do think, having a goal that is personal, and you've argued with yourself, and you've taken long walks, and you've thought about it, and you've thought about continually updating it, is super important. So there'll probably be people listening who all they want to do is make 50, 60k a year, right? That's absolutely fantastic. That's absolutely fine. But it's just a different plan for somebody who wants to scale and sell that for 5 million in 2 years' time, or 10 years' time, right?
Yeah.
But having a goal, to me, is the most important thing, and they're all equal. It's you can't compare somebody who wants to get home for 6 o'clock to be with their kids versus somebody who wants to sell it in 5 years' time for 2 million. It's the same. It's a personal thing, and therefore we shouldn't, as a society, kind of like belittle people who have different goals or different ways of thinking, because I think that's what makes society, and that's what makes life so vibrant and so fulfilling, is that we all have a different, The example I often use, this is getting really philosophical for you. But the example I always use is if I had just a standard masonry brick here, you may say, well, it's an effing brick. Yeah. Whereas I would go, well, we could use it as a plinth, we could use it as like something to hold like a phone against. It's perspective, and I feel that a lot of people just think, oh well, I want to make a shit ton of money. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
you can swear. We can swear.
fantastic.
Yeah.
They want to make a shit ton of money, and that's that's great. But actually, they get to that point and they think, well, why have I done this?
What?
I remember seeing a LinkedIn post, I think it was last year or the year before, from a guy who said, I thought what I wanted was this big business. It employed lots of people, was making turning over millions, and actually it drove me to the brink of suicide. Now I've got a much smaller, it was a guy in recruitment. Now I've got a much smaller team. I'm home at a sensible time. I have a great work-life balance. I get to see the kids, and I'm far happier and far more fulfilled. And I was like, that's incredible. And so so I just think take the time to self-reflect. Take the time to really argue with yourself what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how that impacts where you're trying to get to, and what that looks like. And then you have to do the uncomfortableness of sitting there and thinking, well, actually, this is personal for me, and if people don't get it, then that's fine. And so for me, I went to Monaco when I was in my 27, 28. I absolutely fell in love with it, and everyone was like, "Yeah, it's expensive. It's it's fast cars, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "But you haven't been to the real Monaco, which is there's lots of great people there, lots of amazing entrepreneurs. It's a very vibrant scene. There's no crime there because they have a police officer for I think every 40 residents.
Yeah.
So but it's bloody expensive to move there, right? And so that's been my whole thing, and everyone's criticising me for having that goal because they're like, you just go after money, you just. I'm like, well, no, because for me, ultimately, I live somewhere that's fundamentally in line with my principles and my viewpoint in life.
Yeah,
and I feel that is a place. And so, I think you have to get uncomfortable, don't you? You have to be like, I'm going after this. I'm being resolute, and I just stick to it because actually, that's what I feel that is the best outcome for what I was trying to do in life.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think having that clear vision is something that you need to know, well, as early as you can, because otherwise you're just building for the sake of building, or you're just coming in day out for whatever that reason is. So I do agree with that, absolutely. Excuse me. Sorry? In terms of like things you've come across, like biggest challenges, like what have been your biggest challenges, and then what have been your clients' biggest challenges that you've seen?
So my biggest challenge, I think I've figured this out just recently, is try to explain why taxes don't matter so much.
Okay.
And I know it sounds really controversial, but let me explain. So a lot of people, I think, the one thing, and you must see this all the time on LinkedIn, and everyone's like, try TikTok. We have a 7.5 times ROAS on Facebook, and it's like, that's great, but that's a tactic that isn't informing your strategic plan of how you're going to get to your goal. And so, so up until probably like six months ago, I was trying to figure out how to do strategy in a way that's conducive to actually talking to about clients. And so we're able to say, well, actually, what is your own goal? And then can we do a session where we build a plan towards that? How your business can help you reach that without mixing the word strategy. People are more conducive and more on board to actually have that conversation.
Yep.
As it's taken me quite a bit of time, quite a bit of thought, and quite a bit of actually talking to people, and people like looking quite dumbstruck when I say, let's talk about strategy, and they're like, you're like, cool, all right, so that didn't work, right, let's reformulate, to really figure out that actually, we need to talk about strategy first, and then we can talk about tactics, because actually tactics are informed by our strategy, but tactics don't inform our strategy, right?
Yeah.
And so actually being able to be able to say to people, well, I don't know whether we're going to use PPC, I don't know whether we're going to use SEO until we've done that strategy session.
Yeah.
It created a nice blocker for people to then say, well, do you want to take that first step? Do you feel that you're tall enough to ride the rides, for that first step?
Yeah, I do actually want to do it almost.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because I find actually, once you have a concrete plan, you can keep referring back to it, you can keep changing it, you can keep updating it, which is why it's a working document. But you at least have a plan that you can use and you can rally around, which is so important.
Yeah.
And then for clients, it's trying to educate clients on what is noise and what is actually going to get them to their goal, right?
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of people in life are taught cost benefit analysis, right? As I don't think a lot of people think right, I'm going to spend 3 hours, on this small little widget on the website that's going to make no difference, but because they delude themselves into believing that it's going to make a massive difference, and they don't step back and say, right, what is the cost of doing this versus the benefit of doing it? They then sit there and they spend an awful lot of time that flops, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I remember last year I was consulting for a client at the time. I was like, yeah, do you ever think about like building out like what I call like minimal viable marketing? So you do the bare minimum just to test it, so we'll actually build up a page that says we're thinking of offering this kind of service, to run alongside what the products we sell. Sign up here, which takes you probably an hour to put together, right? Or like an hour or two to put together, and then you can test the waters, or thinking, we have a presence on Facebook, so let's try and figure out what's the minimal viable stuff we can be posting to actually get some traction, and then if that works, then we can scale up from there. A lot of people just think, well, actually, we should be on Facebook, so let's go gung-ho at that, and let's have a plan, and we'll just, and so I crudely respond to, but I often say, with this kind of thing, so you're giving somebody a big bag of money to go spend on Coke and hookers, which again I know is quite derisive to say, so I apologise, but it's that whole kind of mentality. They don't think about what they're doing; they just go gung-ho into it, and they just think, well, it's going to work out, without really understanding if it will or not.
Yeah, so it's educating your clients to understand.
Yeah,
they're going to go the what and the why again.
Yeah.
And in terms of obviously the business itself, AJS, obviously you know that's like yourself, and you are the brand, the business.
I am indeed.
How do you sort of set yourself up with your clients? Is there in terms of the amount of sort of clients you try and work with? Is there that sort of how do you sort of work? Thinking from a if someone else is setting up on their own, they're on their own at the moment. How do they get the most out of what they're trying to deliver for themselves and clients?
So for me, it's about trying to understand what your lane is, right? So for me, I know what I know about marketing, and there's lots that I don't know about marketing, so I look for partners. So I have a freelancer stable of probably 20 or 30 freelancers. I'm always adding and always expanding that. Because there's some value there's lots of value in that, because there are people that will care about certain things that I don't, and so they have the expertise. I can bring them in on projects and but they're not a full-time employee, right? So I would, partnerships are really critical, and also building friendships with people that are intelligent and have the same views and values as you is super, super important. And so so I would just say, really understand what you can do and what value you bring to the marketplace that someone's actually going to give you cash for, right?
Yeah.
And then try and figure out how you can make that into a more substantial thing, right? Or how you can diversify and make that into, a great actual earner. So that's kind of the first thing. The other thing, so for me, it really depends. So I've had certain clients that just want, weekly check-in, and we do a weekly check-in, and they're working on action steps. We're working on action steps. That's great. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Well, I had other clients that we're on WhatsApp, and we're WhatsApping, or we're slacking every couple of hours to each other because we're discussing ideas, and it's more fluid. And so, clearly I'm not spending my life on Slack, because that would just, I get nothing done.
Yeah.
But it's the free flow kind of ideas that you can have that way, that you can, the immediacy of it may take you 2 minutes to answer that and say, hey, that's a great idea, or hey, did you see this email come through, and what do you think about this as a creative idea? I feel it's more fluid. But then I realise I'm in a unique place of the types of people that I work with, are goal-driven or vision-driven, however you want to put it, are in a scale-up phase, and are therefore willing to work crazy hours to make their dream happen, right?
Yep.
And because I'm as equally as crazy and as psychotic as they are, right? I am working crazy hours.
At least you own that. At least you understand.
Yeah. I said to a good friend yesterday, I'm not married, I don't have any kids, so I can work these crazy hours. I have these crazy goals. And she was like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, so but for me, it's about collaboration. So, 2 days ago, a client just WhatsApped me and said, right, I've got this opportunity. Do you have 5 minutes to discuss? I was like, cool. Jumped on Zoom, talked for about 15 minutes. And that was far easier than sending 20 emails backwards and forwards and missing the point or not understanding the nuance. And so I much prefer that, or just pick the phone and say, right, just seeing that, great, that looks great. I would just change these 3 little things, boom, you're done, right? And you can have that instant feedback. So it has to be collaborative. It has to be a two-way street, because I don't think otherwise you're going to get the wins that you promised.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. I think just in e-com, I think it's a big thing I've seen across every sector and every business and
sites.
all that sort of stuff. But it does seem as if like collaboration, partnerships, all that stuff is the beating soul of everything that e-com is great.
Well,
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I was saying to somebody yesterday, at our level, some probably like 10 million, as an agency or as freelancers or whatever, right? On the actual service delivery side of things, right? I don't see it as we're not competing with each other, because we have different proclivities, we have different understandings, we have different skill sets, and so it's about collaboration. I give you a great example. So at the moment, I'm working with one of the biggest SEO e-com firms in the country, a company called Blink.
Yep. I know Sam and the guys there.
Yeah, Sam, right. And I have a lot of time for Sam. I think he's an absolute rock star. Whenever I say that to him, he giggles like a little schoolgirl. He's like, "That's not me, right?" Sam, you'll know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But we're collaborating on something at the moment between us, and on paper it would look like actually he's going to try and steal my clients. He's going to try and steal my way of doing things, but actually, we've had some really, really insightful conversations where he said some really, really great throwaway comments, and I've gone, cool, let me write it down, let me think about how we can apply that instantly, right? And, hopefully I've had some made them think a little bit as well. But again, on paper, we should be talking to, we should have the relationship we do, because it looks like we're actually competitors, but actually, in reality, we can collaborate because of what we do. And I know another person that you may know that I know Sam has a lot of time for is Jesse from Webtopia. And it's the same thing. Me and the three of us have a lot of overlap in terms of what we offer, in a roundabout way. But because we all get that we have finite time or a finite proclivity to actually utilize our time, right? That actually we can collaborate and we can work in partnership, and we can actually get better client outcomes than if we just saw everything as competition, everything as, well, you're stealing my dinner.
Yep.
And I think that's what separates the men from the boys, to use a very bad phrase. I apologise.
Not at all.
Or the children from the adults. The children from the adults. There we go. That makes sense. But that's what I kind of think, and so I do think it's all about collaboration, it's all about partnerships, and it's all about trying to figure out how you can help each other before they help you. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about your client getting the right
100%.
service, isn't it?
100%. Yeah.
Amazing. To be fair, I think I was going to talk about sort of collaborations anyway, but that sort of covers a lot of it.
I'm sorry, we're jumping ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just the whole I said before we started recording, like this, have a chat about things, and they'll go to different rabbit holes and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so
it's all good.
How have you sort of found the last, sort of couple of years in terms of post-pandemic? Have you seen sort of a difference in the way that e-com brands are looking to scale, or the way that different sort of businesses are coming to market, or you've always talked about being on WhatsApp, on Slack almost 24 hours a day, that's sort of a different prefix than what it was, probably when you started out, in terms of having to be on the ball so much.
So I think the pandemic, for a lot of us, has made it more of a living playing field. I remember at the end of last year, I talked to another agency owner in America who does a lot of HubSpot and does a lot of marketing automations. And she was saying, I think that the business is her and husband and they have a team. And she was saying, pre-2020, they had clients that were saying, I think they're on the East Coast. They had clients like in California and the West Coast saying, "Hey, can you just come out and do 2 days on site?" And because the whole nature of the business at that point was people just packed up and did that, they were losing a week just doing 2 days on site. By the time you travel across and you waste all that time. Where the pandemic, has leveled the playing field in terms of, they can work with anyone anywhere. She was saying to me that they got clients in China and Australia, because obviously the time difference for them works. Doesn't work so well for us Brits.
Yeah.
In terms of like Australia, especially in China. But she was just saying, it's been a great equalizer, because now they can say to the client, do you want 2 days on site? Right, that's going to cost you an extra $4,000. Are you still willing to, pay? Or we can do it remotely, and, they're now charging what they feel is more appropriate for their actual time. And it's not just the actual time on site anymore, it's the time
that they give them.
Exactly. And I think for me, the pandemic was great in that kind of simple ways. I think a lot of people thought, right, we can work with anyone who has the expertise that we're looking for. It doesn't have to be the local e-com marketing agency. It doesn't have to be the local print agency. We can go to the marketplace in general and hire somebody who is competent and capable, regardless of where they are.
Yeah.
I think that's been game-changing for a lot of people. I think that's also been game-changing for how we work. The flip side of that is, there's still the need for people to have fulfillment centers and for how to have actual physical staff on site. So there's obviously the pull and the drag in that kind of arena, in a sense, essentially. But I think it has changed how we conceptualize work and where we conceptualize where we hire people from. But I've also seen a lot of people that were terrible managers because they were micromanaging people. They had become better because they've had to trust that the person sat 300 miles away is actually doing the work that they've agreed they will. Yeah, and I'd have to guess that you've had these conversations as well with people, but also you probably had these conversations where you said, well, you're not just paying me for the hours that I'm doing, you pay me for the outcome that we agreed that I'm going to get for you. And if that takes me 10 minutes or it takes me 10 hours, it really doesn't matter. I don't need you to stand over me and watch me do the task. Right?
Yeah.
I'm getting paid for a deliverable, not clocking in, clocking out, because it's not one of those types of roles. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I think the market has shifted, and that's how I think people's perception has shifted. I will say I think it's incredibly damaging in tech, especially with all these tech firms who've got the asset base, so they've got the 3,000 seat office space, who are now demanding people come back in. I think that's disingenuous. I think that's actually very harmful. I think there's a case to be made for hybrid working, absolutely.
Yep.
Because I think that actually, again, being able to shout across the table at somebody who's 3 rows down on a Thursday because you're all in as a team, right, and just say, hey, what's about this, rather than having to message them and wait, right? There is mileage in that, right?
Yes, definitely.
But I don't feel that person needs to be sat there 9 till 5 if they can get their work done in 4 hours.
Yep. Yeah,
and
we're
have
in
to
the
do
same,
all
we're
the
the
things,
same
have to
sort
do
of,
all the things, yeah.
And we're the same thing in recruitment. Obviously, we, in terms of what we've had to do previously, usually it'd be, okay, well, I'm based in Norwich, you really just look after Norwich-based recruitment, and that's really it. And you've got to find Norwich-based talent for them Norwich-based businesses, because they want them in the office 5 days a week, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I think what I've seen, especially from sitting in my chair, which I'm quite a privileged situation to be able to do this, is I've seen my clients grow over the pandemic and sort of since, because they've been able to pick up bigger clients because because their clients aren't just focused on, as you say, you probably won clients around the world rather than
I have,
previously wouldn't have actually known who you were, because who is AJS based in Bath,
exactly,
who is the guy type thing. So what I've been able to see, I guess, is that same switch and clients have, I mean, the clients who have truly harnessed sort of how to do things properly, and they've got the right processes, procedures, all that sort of stuff in place, they're the ones who have like thrived and have like grown exponentially through this, and that's come from them finding. I'm not going to say better talent because it's different talent, right? Like it's different sort of levels, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But looking at what we're trying to do with Fulfilled now, like we're working with clients across the globe already, and locally and in like London and Newcastle and everywhere else, and go back 5-6 years, that'd be a much tougher sell because those clients would want you to go in to meet them and all that sort of stuff, which I still want to do, but there's less of a requirement because if you're decent at what you do and you understand how to be consultative, and I think of the 6 or 7 podcasts I've done, AJ, the phrase "don't be a dick" has come up probably 4 times. And it rings true, right? It does ring true.
I concur with that advice, but anyway, yes.
It's so true. And
it is. It is.
And it's been incredible. I think the people who have not done so well probably have been a bit more rigid in terms of things they've wanted to do, and that's fine because they'll still deliver great service and be brilliant at what they do, but they probably maybe won't reach the heights that if they opened up themselves more that they could get to.
Yeah. But I also found, just to tack on at the end, I've also found that because people are willing to work with anyone wherever, in the last couple of years, since the pandemic, I've worked with people in California, from one end, right through to, Romania, Albania, Ukraine on the other end.
Yeah.
So, my brain now works in 3 different time zones, or 4 different time zones, right? Because I'm thinking, if I'm in South France, that's an hour ahead. I've got friends in Romania who've done this business with it 2 hours ahead. I've then got California, which is 7 hours behind, right? New York, which is 5 hours behind, and then you've got obviously your domestic time. So, it is.
I'm with you completely on that. Like I said, we've got a client, one based in America, they're 6 hours behind. Then we've got a client based out in Oz who are 10 hours ahead. And you've got like I woke up this morning, there's an interview going on with a client in Oz, and I was like, oh, that's already happened, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. And you'd be I've never really had that thought process, I guess, but you've got to get used to that if you want to. Again, it depends on your goal, right? Going back to that same thing we talked about at the start, it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
And what you want to deliver for your business and for your clients, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So talking about it from seeing using the example of you taking your client to a +$1 million revenue, obviously with that they've had to sort of grow their teams. How have you seen the best people sort of do that in terms of keeping? Because for me, again, this is my take on it, and I'm happy to be taken apart on it. Trying to get people to come in who have got that same vision and values, or at least align with what that goal is going to be for the business, is the biggest thing to get right. Because if you get that wrong and you hire one bad apple, 2 bad apples, depending on the size of your team, could be a huge problem.
Doesn't it? It permeates.
Sorry?
It permeates. I don't think a lot of people realize that. The thing that I would say about scaling, and this is going to be no shock to anyone, is getting sales is relatively easy, right? Because you can just dump a bunch of money into Meta ads, into Google ads, right? And you can get more sales. And the current case story for that is Temu, right? They're just throwing a bucket ton of money at paid media, and that's what they're generating sales. But what's harder, and you'll have seen this as well, is getting the horse and the cart and the bale of hay in the cart before you start to actually do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are unaware or unwilling to get things in the right order to allow them to scale effectively. They just think we want to scale, so let's go after more sales. And I come in and I say, I'm the arsehole in the room, and I say, well, actually, do you have the documentation to do that? Are you thinking the right way? Have you got a vision that is easy to explain to people, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that you can get buy-in with your team members so they can understand why you're doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this stuff is very unsexy. And again, people want to focus on, like, we went viral on TikTok last week. Yeah, great. That's absolutely fantastic. How is it delivering to your profit goals? Because again, you're Uber. You don't have a sugar daddy who's pumping you full of cash every month, right? And so it is one of those sorts of things of you do have to have the right processes and the right people in place to make sure that you can scale effectively without things falling off.
Yeah.
And I think
100%.
the businesses that have scaled too quickly and have blown up are the ones that when you go look at, they're a very fresh apple, and you cut the apple in half, it's rotten. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I've seen that time and time again. And, I always go back to two books, and I know, everyone loves to talk about how many books they read. But I always come back to two books, and these two books, are really instructive. One is Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay.
And in that, if you haven't read that, the brief synopsis is get the right people on the bus, and then get the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
Right, and then figure out strategically what you are doing and how you can win at the game, or what you're choosing to play. So it's those two kind of things, right? And the other great book that everybody should read is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Okay.
Because it really just distills down to, are you emotionally running the business, or are the processes running the business?
Okay.
And I feel that a lot of people are emotionally running the business. I can give you a quick story. So I was on a call last month with somebody that I'm imagining she's doing a couple of million turnover in America. I just brought on her as an external consultant, being on the e-com guy, right?
Yeah.
And she said to me, and Michael Gerber uses this as an example, in the book. And basically, she said to us about like 3/4 of the way through, well, I'm at the point of just moving the computer close to the packing line close to the door, so I can do it all myself. And it's the emotion. She's running her business emotionally, not strategically.
Yes.
Right, and the E-Myth to me is it's not about building out documentation that means that you hire robots, but it means that you're writing out documentation that allows people to have a checklist to follow to make the task easier. So when they have to do something creative, they have to problem solve, they've got the mental and emotional bandwidth to problem solve to do something more creative, right? And I think a lot of people just think, well, like, we're just going for sales, we're just going for ROAS, right? And that's really unhelpful, I think, at the end of the day, you're trying to scale, because Warren Buffett, the greatest investor ever to have lived, has this phrase of, eventually the tide goes out and you will see who's been caught swimming naked. And I really think it's that.
Yeah. Sorry, apologies. I was listening. Just with I think the postman just knocked on the door at the same time. So
Right. No, you're all good. You're all good. So yes, that's what I'm saying in terms of like scaling, in terms of actually getting somewhere to a decent kind of critical mass. Of you just have to have the right people doing the right jobs in the right order before you can then start to look at how you could get more sales and how you get more revenue.
yes.
But then you also have to make sure that you're delivering revenue profitably, and that is not ROAS, that is actual fundamental business understanding of how figures actually stack up. And you don't need to be an accountant to understand how the figures stack up. You just need to actually understand the fundamentals of how to run a business. I think a lot of people are lacking in those areas.
Yeah. I think I saw some.
And again, I just want to preface this by saying this, because this is super, super, super important. I know it sounds like I'm talking, but I am constantly evaluating this for myself, and I'm constantly thinking, do I have the right financial processes? Do I understand what my figures look like? Am I, so I'm not, I know it might sound like I'm being a hypocrite when I say all this highfalutin stuff, but I have to reassure you, I'm not completely, utterly, there with everything, right? The number two, I am constantly thinking about this stuff and thinking about how I can improve it for my own business. Because I realise the improvements that I drive internally for what we're doing and where we're going as a business fundamentally will help us educate our clients to help our clients get better results quicker and faster.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, I think I saw something over there about exactly the same scenario you were talking about, just pumping more money into paid media ads, and that then drove loads of sales, but then actually they made no money at all because they were just basically just putting money through a sieve and just letting it sink away and not actually understanding things like profit margin, actually understanding all that sort of element. And if you don't know them core basics, then you are running it very emotionally and not actually like process driven, which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to ping me probably the links for them 2 books, I think, because
Okay.
yeah, I need to get into them, I reckon.
I think you should. Yeah, they're great.
And then last one for me today is in terms of like key takeaways. So if you were, I don't know, speaking to a business who are at that like 1 million sort of level now, they've got this goal in mind, they want to grow to a 5 million, all that sort of stuff. Like, what would you say are like the takeaways you try and impart in terms of that to a client?
Yes, sure. So, A, have a vision. B, have a plan. C, keep coming back and working on that plan, because it's fluid. You'll learn things all the time. Actually, listen to your clients because they have all the problems. They have all the solutions as well.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, I'll just expand this very quickly. What I mean by that is, I've come across clients, and you must have, where you say, so what problems do you solve? And they go off on a completely different tangent. And you say, okay, can I come and talk to your end clients? And you talk to their end clients, and what problems they're actually solving, what problems they're being asked to solve, are actually really, really simple, and they're actually really profitable.
Yeah.
And so actually, like, talking to your clients and actually understanding what problems you're solving and how you're solving them for them is really, really super, super important. Yeah, and then the other thing is, regardless of where you are, whether you're in a growth phase, you're in a scale phase, or you're sitting pretty, think about cash, think about a rainy day, and then, like, my last little tip is, think about, how you're going to realise that value at some point before you go bust.
Yeah.
And I think, the case study for me, and a company that I've admired for years, is Party Pieces and by Middletons. And,
Okay.
if you look over the last decade, when Kate and Will got married, their business shot up into a couple of million, I think, like maybe up to 5 million. They went bust 6 months ago. And that, what happened is, I think 2 or 3 years ago, the Middletons stepped back and put the management team, who didn't understand the vision, didn't understand what the business was doing, and so ran it as a corporate entity, and not as a, like, what I call like the Harvard way of running a business, not an actual, running as an actual going concern. And so they went bust this year.
I did not know that.
I know. There you go. But I think if they had cashed out 3 years ago or 4 years ago, they would have cashed out probably 20, 30 million. And they would be sat very, very pretty, right? And they probably had taken out a couple of million, don't get me wrong. I know they have done it philanthropically, right? But they haven't cashed out at the level they could have done if they'd thought about it sensibly.
Wow.
Because again, we're in business to make money, regardless of how you feel about what you do with the money, right? Whether you do something philanthropic, whether you do something, narcissistic, or you save the money for a rainy day, right? We're in business for money, and it is, what does the vision look like? If money was no object, what does the vision look like, and how can you get to that point where the money is no object? And growing your e-commerce business, I think, is a great way of doing that. But also realising that value at an appropriate time also is super, super key. And so anyway, look, we probably could talk about case studies all day and horror stories, right?
I'm sure you might have a few more up your sleeve, have you? But we're not here for that.
I do, but then,
they're really good takeaways. They really are. I mean, that's
you.
the big thing, I think, is just having that. Yeah. Again, like learning this obviously from a start in terms of, like, I've never owned a business before. Like, Fulfilled is my first one of doing this, and we've got to learn pretty quick around what is our why, what is the goal, and why are we trying to get to what we're trying to get to, and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of that in my head, quite a lot in a minute, and especially that rainy day comment, like actually understanding, because who knows, fingers crossed there's not another like pandemic or not a thing like that, but if there is, like, how do you get through that, and how do you make sure your team and your clients and all that stuff are looked after properly?
So one final case story for you about Rainy Day Fund. You all this. There's a car dealer in just outside Birmingham called Tom Hartley. You may have heard of him, you may not have heard of him, you may have an opinion about him, you may not have an opinion about him. In 2006, 2007, I think they did about 50 million turnover, right?
Wow. Okay.
They sell high luxury used cars. So they sell like Rolls Royces with 10,000 miles on the clock. So they're like pristine, super, super rare cars, right? 2008, they did 10 million because their business evaporated overnight because the credit crunch happened. They're a business that operate with steady cash reserves and steady cash in the bank. So the moment the market changed, at the time it was the father and his two sons. One son's now got off and doing his own little thing, right? With super luxury rare cars. And he's doing 100 million in turnover, right?
Yeah.
It blew my mind how you can do that, but anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Because they were operating from cash reserves, and because they're a small family business, they were able to be really tactical when the market crashed. And they're able to say, right, we have stock, we have cash, we can negotiate, we've got an order book of people that want to deal with us because we've been doing this for 20 years. We're not reliant on the bank trying to fund us. We're not reliant on people trying to give us credit or trying to part exchange models in or like sell on commission, all that kind of thing, right? And so they were able to ride that wave when a lot of their competitors were going bust because they were able to have cash and be tactical about it.
Yeah.
In a traditional car dealership that were doing things on vendor financing, well, not vendor financing, but doing things on like a rolling credit line, day one they would have gone bust because day one that credit line would have been severely reduced or even not taken away, regardless of how successful they've been in the past. Because the bank just went, didn't they? They just went, everything turned back in. And now they're probably doing 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 million.
Again, yeah.
Turnover, right?
Yeah.
But it's because they understand that, they need to operate in cash and they need to be tactical about it, that they've survived and they're thriving.
Yep. Very good. Lots to take away from this, I think.
and again, we probably can talk about kitchens all day, but anyway, I think that's probably enough, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I really, really, really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
AJ,
My pleasure.
so much. Good to catch up again. We'll probably do it more often, really, to be honest. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. Hope the sun stays out for it. And,
likewise.
I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.